This episode is brought to you by VPP Simplified. Now you can get element by element tracking and guidance for your VPP journey. Every aspect of the VPP requirements in one easy-to-use interactive spreadsheet. It explains every sub-element in detail, contains an easy-to-read stoplight so you can track current status for each sub-element. It provides you with a 3-step verification for completion of each sub-element. There's even a notes section for you to compile language that will eventually be used for your VPP application. It even comes complete with graphs to show current state and track your progress moving forward. Look, achieving VPP star status can be tough, but understanding what it takes to get there can be simplified. This VPP Gap tool will help you do that. Go to vppsimplified.com for more information.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
Welcome back. Another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. I am heading out on vacation here soon, and I won't be able to record, a deep topic, or a lengthy one. But as I get ready to head to the beach for spring break with the family, by the time this episode goes out, I will already be there. But I was thinking about some of the seasonal work that needs to be done, in our homes as well as our business. And that got me thinking about tree trimming. And it hit me when it comes to workplace safety. It's easy to overlook the folks that do some of this seasonal work for us sometimes. Now, each year, thousands of trees are uprooted by powerful winds from either a hurricane, tornado, thunderstorms, etc. And usually they take down power lines, transformers. And I wanted to get a quick topic out about the safety that's needed for workers that come out and take care of these trees, that help us maintain our property and improve our personal property as well as our businesses. Now, tree trimming is a serious business. There are numerous serious safety hazards involved, everything from falls to electrical hazards. These workers have to be well-trained, well-equipped, and focused to be able to do this job safely. One of the more common hazards deals with power lines. Either downed lines from a storm or a tree that fell, or just trimming trees near power lines. The safest approach, of course, is always assume power lines are energized. If clearing trees, contact utility companies to talk about de-energizing and grounding or shielding of power lines. This does take time, but just search online for stories involving tree trimmers being shocked or electrocuted on the job. And by the way, a lot of them involve ground workers. That's right, this can happen when either a ladder or the boom of a cherry picker unknowingly comes into contact with an energized line, and the operator's insulated in a bucket. Maybe they don't realize it. And a ground worker walks up and grabs the metal door of the truck or reaches for a tool, something, and they become part of that circuit and receive a shock or worse, get electrocuted. It happens more than you think. So do a quick search online for that. If you're overseeing folks that do this type of work, if you work for a company that does this type of activity, you can use those as safety discussions about, have we ever done this? Do we ever find ourselves in similar situations? How do we handle it knowing that this could happen? So all of those situations can be avoided. All right, although this is a short pre-vacation episode for me, I still want to talk about my partners in safety. So safety and security starts with knowing who's on site. That's why you need to know who's on location. Who'sonlocation.com handles visitor management, contractor management, employee attendance, and evacuation management. Who's on Location evacuation management helps you get people safe, give first responders critical information about who cannot be accounted for, all before they put their lives at risk. It is available for iOS, both iPhone and iPad, Microsoft, both phone and Surface, and Android, both phone and tablet, as a web application. Check it out for yourself. You won't be disappointed. Get a 30-day free trial by going to whosonlocation.com. Look, you get access to all of the features and add-ons. No credit card required. You could try all of these features out for yourself. Go to whosonlocation.com for a free 30-day trial today. I also want to talk a little bit about the official floor marking floor sign company of the Safety Pro podcast, none other than Mighty Line Floor Tape. Now, they know how important safety is to your organization, and the breadth of the Mighty Line product line covers everything you need to implement a 5S system for the increased productivity of your facility and the safety of your workers. Mighty Line's 5S floor markings are a great way to stay organized, keep your shop in tip-top order. They have angles, dots, arrows. Those are just a few of the 5S markings that they offer. Add that to the fact that their patented technology makes their floor tape more durable than others. That's because Mighty Line floor tape is 7 times thicker than the average floor tape. The beveled edge increases durability for forklift traffic. The peel and stick adhesive removes easily. And of course, it's all made right here in the USA. Get a free sample by going to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Fill out the form, get a free sample. Again, mightylinetape.com/podcast. All right, so getting back to tree trimming hazards, one way to avoid utter disaster is always perform a hazard assessment of the job in general, as well as the work area prior to starting your job. So for electrical hazards, ask, will you be closer than 10 feet to your average power line? What about the stability of the ground for outriggers on cherry pickers or aerial lifts? Is there traffic nearby? Will you need to be in the roadway? What about clearance for your work? Just having enough space to drop branches as you trim up the tree, to remove them from the area, cut them up, and load them on the trucks and vehicles. Wood chippers, where are you going to stage everything? I mean, all of this stuff has to be planned. And unfortunately, we see a lot of the times somebody will come out and just kind of look around and get to work and figure it out as they go. I mean, I get it, time is money, but when we're talking about some of the hazards these folks face, it behooves us to take a little bit of time up front to make sure the job goes smoothly. And another part of being prepared for your work means having the right equipment, and the right equipment has to be in the right condition. Always use proper PPE as recommended by the manufacturer in the operating manual or any instructions that come with power tools, powered equipment, things like that. This includes eye, face, head, hand, foot protection for tools and machinery. So keep that in mind. Chippers, shredders, chainsaws, they all have very specific safety requirements. And don't forget training. Proper training on how to use all this stuff. It's important. I'm still shocked when I'll walk by and see landscapers or tree trimming companies. They're wearing shorts and they're using a chainsaw. It's incredible. So yeah, your employees need to be trained on all the tools they will be using. Don't rely on this, I've been using chainsaws for years type of certification, right? Look online, again, for any number of manufacturer videos or literature on chainsaw safety, or any power tool for that matter. I mean, the Power Tool Institute, go to their website. They have some great videos on safety training as well. So search for those if you're looking for good material to share with your operators, even if it's just checking a box to make sure that you've covered this stuff and that they understand this is the expectation. This is how we expect you to work with these tools and machines. So, by the way, I have an OSHA publication, a couple of them actually, that one covers the hazards of wood chippers. So hit the link at the beginning of the show notes if you're using an app to listen to this episode, or if you're listening online via the website, the link is in the show notes on that page for this episode. All right, so getting back to it, right? Broken or hanging branches, attached vines, a dead tree that is leaning, they can all pose safety hazards. All of these hazards can cause injuries, so making sure our employees are trained to spot these overhead hazards and stage our work accordingly should also be covered in your training. Again, the other publication I have, they're together. You just hit one link, you fill out the little email form, and you get an email with these publications. So, but it's an OSHA publication. It covers falls and falling object hazards for tree care workers. So you can use this information to sort of build out your approach to managing safety for your workers, or if you oversee these workers, if you're a maintainer at a facility or a safety professional at a facility where these workers come out and help you maintain your facilities, then you can use this information to sort of oversee their work or request certifications of specific training after you review this material. So look for that link again in the podcast notes, and you can get this information. So what about working outdoors? I mean, in general, regardless of what you do. There are, issues with extreme cold, extreme heat. So this should all be part of employee training as well when they work outdoors. What about how to spot poisonous plants? There's a standard, 1926 standard about workers, especially in construction, that there's a requirement to protect employees against that. Even hazardous or insect bites, animals, wild animals. What do they do when they encounter snakes or other wild animals? You've got to cover this information. Basically, if it's a realistic hazard of the job, have a plan to educate your workers on the hazards and to manage those. If you're not sure what to cover in any kind of training, break the job down into stages and assess, identify the different hazards they may come across doing that job. That's one way to get started. So, for example, number one, getting ready for a job. Do you know the location of utilities that might be on site? Do you need to de-energize those or have those daylighted or potholed, right? So they're exposed so you know where they're at. What about shop safety? What about, as workers early in the morning, they're loading up the truck, they're in the maintenance shop, in the equipment shop, and they're loading everything up. What about oils on the floor, slips, trips, falls? What about housekeeping? All that good stuff. So, you got to focus on safety there as well. Vehicle safety. Once you get on the road, it's going to be more of a DOT type of concern than an OSHA issue. However, it's still important. So vehicle safety, storing or transporting fuels, oils, things like that on the trucks. Conducting PPE inspections before you head out to make sure you have everything you need. Develop a checklist, a list of the minimum equipment you have to have on each vehicle, a first aid kit, the safety data sheets for the materials that they typically carry around on their vehicle with them, all that good stuff. Make sure that you set everybody up before they head out and make sure they have everything they need. What about arriving on the job? Number two, here's another example of breaking this up into stages. So we talked about getting ready for the job. We talked about number two, arriving on the job. So staging, sizing up the scene, especially after a storm or some sort of downed tree event. Where's the nearest emergency room? What's 911 coverage, for rural areas? Arriving on the job, where we're going to stage, having enough room, where folks are going to park. Do we need a traffic control plan? And number three, actual work, right? When work commences, we can, process, use sort of a process safety approach. As an example, if the tree is broken and under pressure, make sure you know which way the pressure is going. If you're not sure, make small cuts to release some pressure before cutting up a section. Having these procedural process safety policies in place that folks can follow. Number two, for another example here, under the work stage, be careful when working with young trees that other trees have fallen against. They act like spring poles, right? They can propel back, they can snap. By the way, many professional loggers have been struck by trees springing back on them like that and throwing them serious injuries. What about a tree that may not have fallen completely to the ground and is lodged against another tree? You've got to be, take extra care and caution to safely bring those to the ground. If possible, avoid felling into other trees or objects. Don't turn your back on a tree as it falls and hide behind, a standing tree if possible. But I know some of these things sound silly, but when something happens people they lose themselves and just react. So reminding people, having these policies, having training, revisiting this information is important. You can also look at other OSHA standards for guidance. You may not consider yourselves loggers, but the logging standard has some really good information and best practices you can use to follow. And those best practices, you can use those to base your operations. Share facts about logging in general to drive a point. Like, more people in logging anyway, more people are killed by felling trees than during any other logging activity. So, keep that in mind. Look, these accidents can be avoided. So, when getting ready for the spring season and all the storms it brings, downed trees, power lines, remember, safety starts well before the work begins. I hope I gave you something to think about, some things to look for, some topics to research, and begin training your workers or better overseeing contractors you hire to help maintain your properties. Be sure to ask for certifications for aerial lift training, if that applies. Ask for pre-job plans to include where they will stage their equipment. Provide a list of PPE that they're going to need to wear while at your site. This can really start a conversation about safety and give you an idea on how proactive that contractor is and whether they're ready for this type of work at your facility. If you're a tree trimmer, either a worker or company owner or manager, it's a good time to start looking at safety as both an employee benefit as well as customer service. It's the law, right? It's the right thing to do. It's good for business. It just makes sense. Share your tips about safety during these types of activities by shooting me an email. Send it to info@thesafetypropodcast.com or go to thesafetypropodcast.com. Click on any number of links on the homepage where you could shoot me an email, or go to the podcast page for this episode and share your comments there as well. I'm off on vacation, heading to the beach with the camper and the family, bringing the dog. I'm looking forward to a safe and happy break, but each week you'll still get a new episode coming out, but I may be a little slow to respond to emails during this time. I wanted to talk about this topic. I saw some folks up the road as I'm getting some items out to the camper, loading it up and doing some work, and it got me thinking, I have never done an episode on this type of activity. So a quick one, follow the links in the show notes, get your free information to help you get started on this topic. And until the next Safety Pro podcast episode, as always, be safe.